Hello, this is a recap of an Indian movie called Three Idiots. It's an amazing movie. Okay, 30-year-old Farhan is on a board of flight that it's minutes away from taking off. He gets a call from someone and the news they relayed shocked him to the core. Right when the airplane takes off, he gets up from his seat trying to get to the sweaters. But before he can, sharp pain in his chest make him fall in unconsciousness. The pilot lands the plane back on the runway and Farhan is rushed outside in a wheelchair. All of a sudden, he opens his eyes, proving that he was faking the heart attack. He does a few jumping jacks and tells his caretaker he seems to be fine. Before running away, then he rushes to his friend Raju's home. He also calls Raju and tells him that their third friend Rancho's back in town. The news shocks Raju as much as it did to Farhan. He quickly wears the shirt and runs outside with his shoes still in his hands. When the friends meet, Farhan reminds him that he forgot to wear his pants. Still, both friends didn't seem to care because the missing pants are nothing compared to reuniting with their long-lost friend Rancho. They go to their former engineering college and meet Chatur, their college rival and an egocentric global man. It turns out that Chatur had made a bet with Farhan and his group when they were in college. They had decided to meet 10 years later, on the 5th of September, to see who is the most successful out of them all. While everyone else forget about this stupid bet, Chatur remembered and brought them all to the same place again. He also reveals that he is the vice president of Rockledge Corporation and a millionaire. The other two do not care about his success and only want to meet Rancho. It is revealed that Rancho left randomly after college and has never contacted them since they had given up on looking for him. After several tears and they are about to pay Chatur up for wasting their time, he claims that Rancho's in a Simla. He wants to take them on a trip to Simla to get them together and show them how far he has come in life. Farhan and Raju are ready to come with him and do not care even if he's trying to prove they are inferior to him. A flashback shows us the time when Farhan entered college for his freshman year. He and Raju were given a single room to share. Alongside Rancho, Farhan and Raju have problems of their own. Farhan didn't want to become an engineer and was only doing it for his father, while Raju was too scared of the future to concentrate on the present. But Rancho was different. The first time they met him was while being bullied by the senior on their first night of college. It was a tradition for the senior guys to get the freshman boys naked and make them bow. It was considered a way for the freshmen to show respect to their elders. It was probably also a way for their elders to exhibit their closet homosexuality without consequences. When everyone else quietly followed the tradition, Rancho didn't know. He locked himself inside his dorm room and refused to come out, even when the leader of the police threatened him to teach him a lesson. The bully is about to be in front of his door, but Rancho is smarter than the other. He joins an electric wire to a spoon and slowly put it in on the door. When the bully pees on it, he gets electrocuted. Everyone's laugh and admires him for his brilliant idea. Farhan and Raju are impressed and confused by Rancho's interesting personality. Following that, we are introduced to the college strict dean, Vaira, known as Virus. Among the students, he is a typical orthodox man who thinks life is a race and the students should do exactly what they are told in order to be successful. One thing Virus hates the most is wasting time. For the same reason, he has Velcro stuck to all his shirts instead of buttons. Virus gathers the first-year students and gives them a speech about a special pen that he got from his teacher. The pen, as he says, is an astronaut's pen that the scientists have invented after years of research to be able to write in space. He has been waiting to give the pen to an extraordinary student like himself, but in his 20 years of career, hasn't found a student good enough for it. In the other word, Virus thinks very highly of himself. Virus has given the same speech to every batch of students the college has ever had, and never in his life has anyone asked him a question. But this time Rancho inquires why the astronauts didn't use a pencil instead of a pen. Virus is left shocked. All he can say is he will get back to the question after the speech. The school's janitor and child worker named Millimeter prizes Rancho for this question. Rancho gives him some money to buy a school uniform, advising him to enter any school without being noticed. His interesting personality is amused to Farhan, but Rancho thinks he will cause them trouble. Rancho isn't like most of the students who work as the professor's puppets. He asks his own questions, make his own answers, and genuinely loves engineering. But the teachers always mistake his attentiveness for mischief and send him out of the class. But Rancho sits in another random class when thrown out of one. He's in college, not for a diploma, but to study, and that is an incredible life lesson that we should all be so lucky to learn. There is only one other like him in the college. Roy, from the fourth year, he has been working on a project that is genius, but Virus refused to look at it because Roy is behind the submission date. He even scolds Roy's father and blatantly tells him his son won't graduate. The news is too much for the hopeful father to handle, but Virus doesn't care. It's absolute about not giving Roy a second chance. Roy throws his projects and Rancho finds it. Later, he sees that the machine is innovative and only needs a little polishing. For the next week, he works on the project and to complete it. When it's done, they fly the drone to Roy's room, only to see his corpse. They run to his room and witnesses that he has committed the unthinkable. During his funeral, Rancho tells Virus that Roy was murdered by the college system of pressuring students. Virus takes the comment personally and writes a letter to Farhan and Raju's parents, telling them that Rancho is a bad influence on their sons. Virus should be in jail. The very next day, Farhan's father calls them home and asks Rancho to stay away from his son. Rancho ignores his words, distracted by the wildlife pictures on the wall. He turns out that Farhan wants to be a wildlife photographer, but he has taken engineering because of his father. Rancho tries to convince his father otherwise, but it is not enough to eradicate his deep-rooted and shallow principle. After that day, they go to Raju's home and find out that his family lives below poverty. His father is bedridden and retired, while his sister is getting older, but no one wants to marry her. The family responsibility falls upon Raju, which is why he is always so scared of the future. Later, the friends pretend to be guests at a wedding to enjoy the food. Rancho notices a girl named Pia and her fiancé talking about her watch. By the conversation, it's clear that the guy, Suhas, is a materialistic man who is only marrying her for his state. Rancho tells Pia what he thinks about Suhas and drops a dressing into his shoes to prove to her how materialistic he is. As expected, Suhas cries out the price of his shoes and yells at the waiter for ruining them. Intrigued by Rancho's personality, Pia does some digging and finds out that he is her father Virus's student. To the guy's misfortune, the wedding they broke into a Virus elder's daughters. Pia tells her father about the three and gets them in trouble. The night before exams, Chatur slips Adults magazine into everyone's dorm room in an attempt to distract them. When Rancho gets a hint of this, he is determined to teach him a lesson. One day, Chatur is invited to give a Hindi speech for an important charity event, but since he is awful at Hindi, he learns a speech without understanding a single word of it. What he doesn't know is that Rancho has changed some important words in the text with words like pressed and assault. On the day of the event, Chatur unknowingly insults the VIPs with an absurd speech. After getting in trouble for it, Chatur is enraged. He challenges the guy to bet on who will be the most successful in 10 years and writes a date, September 5th, on the wall. One day, Rancho bumps into Pia and Suhas outside a jewelry store. Suhas has just bought her an expensive watch. Rancho does an experiment and makes her pretend she lost the watch. Suhas loses his temperature and calls her an idiot, once again showing his materialistic side. Pia breaks up with him after handing him the watch back. Right after Rancho gets a call informing him that Raju's father is having seizure, he and Pia drive to Raju's house and get his father to the hospital just in time to save his life. Raju is beyond thankful and sorry to his friend. Pia sees how much Rancho cares about his friends and starts to fall for him. Finally, the result of the first semester exams are published. Farhan and Raju rank in the lowest position, but they are happy that at least they didn't fail. Then to their utmost surprise, Ranchu rank in the first position. Shatur, who comes second, and Virus, who hates Ranchu's guts, are the saddest people in the crowd. Virus takes a picture together with the best in class with the first and second ranking students by his side. Back in the present, Raju and Farhan reach Simla along with Shatur to meet Ranchu. They arrive at his house according to Shatur's location and find that Ranchu's father passed away. That morning, when everyone is mourning, they approached a man. However, to their confusion, the man who claims to be Ranchu's is someone else. Even in the picture they took together in college is different. The guys return to a nearby restaurant to think of their next step. As they talk, Shatur mentions a great scientist and inventor named Wang Duhu is going to sign $1 million deal with his company next week. The other two can't care less about the so-called great scientist and wants to know why Ranchu's identity was stolen. They return to the house and ask the fake Ranchus about the real one. The man brings out a gun to intimidate them. It works on a Shatur, who runs away like a coward, but Farhan and Raju are adamant. They in turn threaten to throw his father's ashes into the toilet if he doesn't tell them the truth. The man finally reveals that he is the real Ranchu, and the guy who wants to college with them is his gardener's son, who they called Shoot. In childhood, he used the two Ranchu's homework and study for him. When Ranchu's father found out, he allowed Shatur to keep going because he needed education and Ranchu's needed a degree. That way, Shatur had to return after graduation because he had promised he wouldn't keep in contact. After Raju and Farhan find out about his new address, they leave to look for him again. When the guys were in the final year of college, they were nervous about the job recruit taking place in 2 months. While giving a speech about recruitment, Virus insults Farhan and Raju, declaring that they will never land the job. He calls them losers and make fun of them in front of everyone. That night, the three got drunk in anger. While drunk, Ranchu reveals that Farhan has a letter in his bag addressed to his favorite photographer, who he wants to work with. He also calls Raju a coward for constantly worrying about the future. Raju and Farhan in turn promises to do as Ranchu says if he confesses his feeling to Pia. They go to Virus's house and break into Spia's room. Ranchu finds her sleeping and confesses his feeling, only to find out that he had been talking to her pregnant sister, Mona. The girls are both impressed by his proposal. Soon Virus wakes up and finds urine on his front door. He also notices Raju's face in the dark. The guys are so drunk that they fall asleep in class and woke up a few hours later when everyone is studying. Virus storms into the classroom and finds Raju still drunk from last night. Later, Raju is called to his office and told that he will be expelled once and for all. He begs the dean to give him a second chance, but the man just ignores him with no hope left of a good life. Raju committed the unthinkable. In the following scene, we see Ranchu and Farhan rushing him to the hospital. Thankfully, he survives, but goes into a state of paralysis. Bia, who is also a doctor, informs them that Raju can see and hear them so they could act happy and motivate him to get better quicker. Starting that day, Ranchu and Farhan do everything in their power to bring Raju back. They throw parties for him, tell him fake news that might make him happy, and buy his mother's clothes that she always wanted. His expulsion is also determined, but even that good news doesn't bring him back. Then one day Ranchu lies to him that Farhan is going to marry his sister, who is desperate for a husband. The news makes Raju come out for paralysis. With his first words, he calls them rascals and asks them to stop lying. Following that, he gets better in time. On the day of the recruit, Farhan gets a letter back from his favorite photographer, who invites him to be his assistant. Now, all he has to do is ask his father for permission. Similarly, Raju also gives up on all his fortune rings and goes to the interview fearlessly. He tells the interviewer everything about his bad grades and the reason he was about to be expelled. His attitude is unlike anything that the interviewer have ever seen, so they offer him a job. Meanwhile, after emotional conversation, Farhan also convinced his father to let him take up a photography. After the commotion, Farhan and Raju took off their pants in front of Ranchu to pay their respect as per the college ritual. However, Virus, who is sure that Raju will fall, is not happy to be proven wrong. While drunk, he tells his daughters that he will will set the exam question and make it the most difficult ever. Bea is worried for the guys, so she brings the second key to Virus's office to them, arguing them to steal the papers. Then back in the prison, the guys call Bea to tell her that they found Rancho. However, they discover that she is getting married in a few hours. They divert from the original route to pick her up as well. Initially, Bea refused to come with them, even though she's still in love with Rancho. She sits beside her future husband only to find out that the man behind the headwear is Raju. He has taken the groom's place in a desperate attempt to convince her. Eventually, they run away while the guests watch them in shock. The night before in the final exams, Farhan and Rancho had a way to steal the question paper. They do not want to do it for themselves, but they are scared Raju will do something stupid if he doesn't pass. So they steal the paper. When Raju gets a hold of it, he refuses to use it. Virus gets a hint of this and barges into the room to find the question paper on the floor. He immediately expels them all. The guys have no choice but to pick their luggage and leave. When Virus returns home, Bea reveals that his eldest son, who had died in an accident, has actually inflicted his own demise. He did so because viruses pressured him into becoming an engineer. After relaying the news, Bea storms away. A while later, Maya goes into Looper, but the city is flooded, so Virus can take her to the hospital. Rancho sees this on his way out and gets ready to help her. Bea instructs him through the phone. Lie Maya down on the table tennis board. They urge Maya to push harder, but she is weak and can hardly breathe. Now the only way to bring the baby out is by using a device called the Vakama Cup. Bea shows them a demonstration of the device through the computer, which gives Rancho an idea. He thinks that he can make the device with the things that are available around the college. After a lot of work, he finally creates a makeshift Vakama Cup and uses it on her. Mona finally gives birth to a beautifully baby boy who cries after a minute of his birth. Rancho is about to leave, but Virus stops him and gives him the astronaut pen he is supposed to give an extraordinary student. He also answers the first question that Rancho had asked. He claiming that a pencil won't be unuseful in space because its nib could be dangerous if it floats around. What a cop-out of an answer. By the end of the night, he forgives the student and lets them take the final exams. In the following scene, we see the guys graduating. Rancho is yet again the first in the class. As the ceremony contains, he drives away in a taxi. That was the last time Farhan and Raju ever saw him. They tried to contact him several times over the years, but couldn't find him until now, when they have his exit address. When they arrived at the place, they found out it's the school that Rancho teaches at. While looking for him, they run into the janitor Millimeter, who has now grown up. They are told that Rancho brought him to his school so he could get the proper education. In the following scene, Bea drives to Rancho, who is teaching some student by a lake. She walks up to him and slaps him in the face before kissing him. Soon, Farhan and Raju join and beat him up for abandoning them, but they understand that he had to keep his promise to the real Rancho. As the group returns, Shatur also joined them and make fun of Rancho for being school teacher. He compared his $million salary to Rancho's 5,000 rupees. On seeing that Rancho has Virus's pen, he takes that away as well. The rest of the group asks Rancho for his real name. To everyone's surprise, he turns out to be the great inventor, Mr. Wang Du, who Shatur is hoping to sign a deal with. Wang Du calls him from his number and relays a message to him. In the last scene, Shatur apologized to him and opened his pants to show respect as per the college tradition.